accepts a turn myself on here. When one accepts the idea that one God is all there is, it means that they may have rejected or accepted the idea that there can be many gods. When one accepts one mate, it means that they may have understood but are rejecting the idea of many mates. Usually when one needs many mates to satisfy him or herself, it usually means that one has many appetites that are not satisfied usually by one person or one mate. And so to diversify, because still wanting to please self, they don't discontinue the things of their appetite. They try to find somebody else that will enjoy eating what they are eating or partaking in what they are partaking in. Usually as one gains wisdom from the seeking of knowledge, you begin to try and codify or put into one all, because the time comes short to be able to accept and practice many different varieties of things. If we're very rich and wise, we can still do those things. If we're very poor and knowledgeable, we'll never find time to do them all, and little by little, those other things fall apart. The church, after finding mankind in a state of having many needs for many gods, a god for each separate energy that mankind saw: elemental, mineral, plant, insect, animal, human, man, and then the supreme being. There was a need to have a god for the insects, a god for the wood, a god for the spirits of the plants, and so on again like this. And those same gods they felt would influence mortals equally, so there was what they call polytheism, a belief in and need for many gods. As man, through wisdom, grew to understand that all of these still played homage or had need for a higher force, then more of what was called monotheism would develop. A universal prime creator, and then all things being in different stratifications beneath that one God. The ancients called the god Ra, later changed to Aten. Many had other gods in between. Usually, when a person has the need for a central figure combining many attributes, they will look for that also in a mate as they look for that within themselves. They would then try to find one man, one woman, with as many attributes as they have that can be covered within them, and then try to plant themselves within that one consciousness. If there's variations of that, or if there isn't variations of that, it depends usually upon the person. The church, in turn, tries to solidify under one banner, because in that way they can get many people. And in getting many people, they go in strength and number, and hopefully then in power and in money. This is why the church usually becomes monotheistic. And if you read the teachings again of Akhenaten, who was of course, Anapolo, or Annapolis, Akhenaten became the believer in the one monotheistic God after having believed in a plurality of gods, simply because he had had also at that time many wives, and now took in Nefertiti to be his one wife, even though he had many concubines and many mates as a leader and ruler. When we read of Belkis and Nefertiti and many of the other Das and Tawa, many of the other women who were almost as gods and worshipped, they still were seeking a one person. Usually they found that the more money they had to confine it to try and find a mate or a male who had the same amount of money and power, and it wasn't a lot of people. As you gain wisdom and stature, you can't afford to spread the seed of mind or body too far. So usually as one grows in wisdom, monotheism becomes the way, with understanding that monotheism still can control many other deities and deisms. It's been said many times that if there were no God, man would make one. We generally create in our own minds the need for the deities in order to understand and blanket all the things we search for, and it's easier to pray to one and get many things done than it is to pray to many and have one thing done. So usually again, with knowledge and wisdom comes a belief or need for a central point, a starting point, a monotheistic deity. Going now to what we would call celestial influence in mating. And Marcia, where did she leave? Do you have is she here? Yeah. I need you to get the things on the, astrology. And don't pass them yet, but get them out. We understand celestial generally means heavenly, and heavenly means anything from a solar system to a nebulae to a constellation to a galaxy to a universe to a cosmos and on infinitum. But there was a belief at one time in finding a mate, being with a mate, seeking a mate, or finding self under a moon sign. And this was usually proffered in what is called astrology, or the study of the stars. We are told now that the stars are suns, that all those many manifested stars we see at night are all suns in some distant constellation having solar systems that influence through the Milky Way or others of what they call prisms of Lyra, other of the prisms, people. We're said that everything in the heavens, we're told, influences us, that there are energies that stream from everything we can see in many directions, and some of them interface or come into contact with us, and we are influenced by them. We're told also that moons are probably more manifold than suns, even though many moons are not able to be seen, simply because moons can directly orbit a planet, but planets orbit the sun, and therefore there would be less suns than moons. But all of them in the teaching of astrology states that the electromagnetic energy that flows from these bodies streams into our earth, and where it does, and if we can see it, it will influence us. In astrology, it teaches nativity and this natal sign of one's entry to this planet. I won't say other planets, we'll say this planet. And the very minute by minute, as the clock of the cosmos changes, each soul coming in at that time, each person being born at that time, has a certain lock on its DNA, RNA structure, on her consciousness and achievements, and will then be separate and equal to everything else, but unique in the fact that this is the time that they entered into the earth plane. Astrological mating, then, is to try to find a natal, a time of entry, and all the attributes of the various houses that they say are in the heavens around us, which means that all of these planets and things influence us in a certain way, and they set up a science to show how much influence, when probably, how probably, so on and so forth, starting with the time that you took consciousness at this time on the planet Earth. There are many people who will not do anything outside of that science. They will not seek jobs at a certain time unless the stars say so. They will not seek comfort unless a certain time from certain energies or people unless the stars say so. They will not seek mates only if the signs are equal or the signs are definitely not opposite, and then only if they're opposite if they have the strength and mentality to cope with an opposite attraction. There are people who base everything that they do on what is simply called star time fixture or astrology. Marsh, I need one, I need just one, and then we'll pass out the other. I left my copy. Or did I leave my copy? Yeah, I did leave my copy. Thank you. In looking at this thing closely, they have made certain delineations, certain mandate laws that will follow the certain signs. And they said, since there were now 12 months, that each month had a attribute, and each sign would fall within a certain period of time, usually 20 to 28 days. When they divided it, they made usually about 22 days. So we'll go over just the basics, which I think most of you know. Aries, they then put at around March 22nd on to April. They said it was a sign of the ram. They said again that an Aryan person was hard-headed, very talkative, very egotistical, and I like to call it, so I can remember it, the I am sequence. Aries think, I am first. I am. Taurus is usually a person who they say is traditional, generally around March 22nd to about April the 2nd or so. Very traditional, one step at a time, pragmatic, logical. It's my money that bought it, solid as a rock, so on and so forth. Very money-oriented usually too. I like to call them, these people, the I-haves in the world. Gemini, dealing again with the area from about April the 21st, again to May or so the 21st, or in throughout, is a person who's generally intellectual, I would say even slick or shrewd, very good with their hands, and generally, of course, being ruled by Mercury, very fast. They can change things around quickly also, if you will. I like to refer to them as the I think people. Cancer, generally again anywhere from the 26th to all the way through July. I'm sorry, again, yeah, the 23rd, anywhere from June to 26th to 23rd, are what they call the crab, hard-shelled outside, but very soft inside if you can get past the pincers. Usually, again, with the Cancer, it's home and feelings, and so I like to say they are the I-feelers. They feel. Leo, generally, are about July 24th to August the 23rd, and if you notice I'm saying generally, I'll explain afterwards why I say that again, is very gregarious, talkative, very giving. They are the spendthrifts of the world. They are sun-centered, so therefore they have a lot of ego and a heck of a lot of pride. And I call them the I creates. The I creates. Virgo, generally health conscious, generally August 24th to September 23rd. They are the worriers. They sometimes can be picayunish, nitpicking about things that are not really necessary, even to the point of nagging. And as I say again, if they're sun sign centered, it might vary somewhat, but the intensity will never vary. They are the I analyze folks of the world, if you would. Libra, the time again of called Justice and Balance, September 23rd, generally to around October 22nd. They are the Venus-ruled people. They are the ones that seek balance and justice overall. They probably would not want to sit on the O.J. Simpson jury. They are the people I say I balance. They believe in balance and justice. If you give them an injustice, forget it. They'll never forget it. And they always are finding ways to try and seek and find and keep balance. Scorpio, the intense, the vindictive, the lofty, the oriented, and the forgetful. They love to forget that they do wrong and love to remember everything that you do right. Oh, I'm sorry, you do wrong. I mean, they do right. Let me stop playing with you Scorpios. They are very investigative. They are very secretive. And I like to say they are the I investigative group. Sagittarius, philosophical, just in general speaking, kind of a nice person to deal with if you have the time to wait till they get through everything else. And as the young lady told me here today, get to the point. No, she didn't say that. She wasn't that mean at all to me. This meant, I want the facts, if you would. They are to me, to themselves as to me, the I believers. They have a belief and they want it stressed and they're philosophical about it, but they are the I believe. Capricorns, the materialistic, the striving for achievementers, the ones who are boss and must be boss. They have as much chance of working for somebody as I have of serving the President of the United States. They are the people who must know, must believe. They are the I runners. Aquarius, the intellectuals, the independent, flirtatious, and at the same time stable when mind is finally given something to reason with. January 21st to February the 20th, they are the I know-its. Pisces, the deep, strange, far-sighted, intuitive people of our world, February the 20th to March the 20th. They always, again, are creating in one sense, but sometimes they have a hard time bringing creativity down to actuality. They are the I dreamers, or I dreaming of the world. Each of those signs has within it weaknesses and strengths. And each of them has the physical body governed by different aspects of what we call energies that will run through chakra centers. You know, we didn't get into that. I know everybody's a master of chakras. I hear you talk, so I know you must be. And therefore, the organs that those chakras influence are strong or weak. The anatomical structure is strong or weak. For instance, anything that's going to happen to an Aries will first happen with the head, and then it moves on to other things. It happens in the head and with the head. Taurus is the throat. You're in so-called again. Gemini is the shoulders and the hands, because they're twins in the sense of their sign. It's always never just one thing with the Gemini, and usually it's the shoulders and the hands. Cancer is the breast, sometimes the digestive tract, especially the upper part of the digestive tract, what we call the small intestines. Leo, it's usually the heart. You know, it's supposed to be the heart of a lion. Sometimes it can be the weakness of the kitten. It depends on the Leo. Virgo, it's the bowels, hemorrhoids, and so on and so forth. Their nerves are always upset, so they don't digest food easily, always worrying. Watch the bowels. Watch the hemorrhoids. Libra, it's usually the kidneys. Scorpio, the genitalia. Sagittarius, usually the hips and upper thighs. Capricorn, the knees and the calves. Aquarius, usually the ankles. Pisces, the feet. All of those signs have strengths and weaknesses. All of those signs have things and energies that they can use easily and have hard times using. When we're bombarded with the sea of electromagnetic energy and we can't utilize it correctly, we get problems with the area that we don't utilize correctly or completely. And that's why they can begin to say certain sign, certain attributes, certain weaknesses. All of that, including the mating and so on and so forth, is based on a knowledge of astrology, the study of the stars and the heavens of the Creator, that is sometimes now being mistook, misused, and misunderstood. Metaphysics states that any planet that has a moon has a problem. The more moons, the more problems. Simply because it means that the central cell or nucleus where the governor or brain is supposed to exist is now having all kinds of electrons making viable the neutron. Too many ways to go. Too many things to do. Our planet Earth at one time had no moons, yet it did have intelligent life. Certain alien forces brought forth a moon to confuse the master teachers and the godlike men who were here and give them another challenge. And from the time we got a moon, we got a problem. Our planet was supposed to have a magnetic frequency and a magnetic frequency only. The moon brings in an electrical potential and at times even discharges an electrical energy which confuses, confronts, and compounds everything that is on the surface of the planet and many things in the middle of the planet. It was purposely brought here to lower our energy field. And anyone born with a heavy moon sign, or when the moon sign enters to their house, as they call it, or into their consciousness of thought and spirit, mind and body. Understand, astrology does not just deal with the physical. Well, unfortunately now, just accepting its physical as a reality. It deals with the total soul that is there and what it must experience. So anytime that moon sign is there, that person's weaknesses and strengths are all predominantly played out. It's because it generates our moon an electrical circuit, which the ancients begin to fear and respect. And even at one time tried to make war to get the daggone thing back out into the solar system or into the galaxy where it came from. And they had the wars of men and gods, of lords and gods. But it stays there, and it's still a bane to us. And this is why you hear all of the negativity about lunatics and what happens on a full moon, and of course us being so fluid in our natures because there's a lot of spirit and some soul here. Anything that has a water complicity is affected by the moon. The menses of the woman, the craziness of the man and mind during the time of a full moon or as it nears, everything on our planet is governed by that moon cycle, and it should not be. So as we can escape the moon sign and get more to the sun sign, we can become more or less son of the sun, because as they state, under a sun, things are stable. Nothing new under a sun. What is there is there. Under a moon, it gets to be interesting. We now accept the idea that astrology can govern if we are knowledgeable, and will govern everything we do, and many people will consult the oracle or that ephemeris or the astrologer when things are rough. I say to you, it's just like going to the minister only when things are rough. Keep in mind that there are close to, in any big city, close to 2.5 to 3 million people that buy a newspaper each and every day. That's why the media, as far as the written media and the press papers, are powerful. They, in many cases, people turn to the astrological guide and section and peruse it. Some cut it out and keep it with them on a daily basis, put it in their purses and wallets, in their cars, on their mirrors, on their desk blotter, and consult what they would do, will do, or it has an influence because they've given that privilege to the astrologer or columnist that writes that. Well and good, for each person must find their own truth. But think about this. One column, one astrological rundown, 3.5 to 5 million people reading it, all saying, it fits me. It's my guide. And that person is one of the best astrologers I've ever seen in my life. I know it's there. In fact, I'm just waiting to get the next day's issue. How? By logics in name of whatever prelate you wish to call on. Can 3 to 5 million people read the same column and all of it say it fits them? But within that context is our challenge. It does in many cases. The reason for it is that we are all of the vibration that is not changeable and can be mapped, zoned, and printed. Astrology was for the wise, to see where a planet was by the actions and doings and thoughts of the intelligent life on that planet. And they could documentarily say that this person would in all probability do this because they knew that the mass consciousness was what was there and it did not vary. As one begins to gain wisdom, astrology can go out the window. Because a person that rises in spirit cannot be patterned, cannot be probable and cannot be defined. It was the goal on a planet's existence to gain spirit, insight, and wisdom so that you cannot be mapped and have to seek your mappings on higher and varied planes. Think of it like this. A group of scientists are in a laboratory. There is an open maze on 2 or 3 huge tables and a little rat or a little mouse that the scientists place either at the beginning of the maze or in most cases in the middle of the maze and chart how long it's going to take for that rat or mouse to find its way out of the maze. They have dead ends, gates that come up and down at certain times, blind passageways, places where you can run and gain 2 or 3 lengths. All of this has been set up because the maze has been cast. And then they plop the rat there and begin to chart how long it's going to take the rat. And they can make all kind of probables because they've placed many rats there, and they can begin to judge, probably by the size of the rat, the intelligence of the mother and father, all that kind of thing, what's going to probably happen. But then the rat one day gets tired of it all, looks up in the laboratory, and jumps out of the maze. Now you have mass confusion amongst the God scientists. The rat can't be calculated because the rat is no longer in their maze and is running in their homes, and they can't chart what that rat might do. When they calm down, they might say, watch the food because the rat might go eat it. Watch your toes because on the way to that he might nip me, and that's the thing that the gods would fear the most. So now they say, take that rat and put it into a different maze with a top on it, and no longer put that rat in a maze where it can jump out, because that rat is a thinker and dangerous. Astrology ceases to work when one rises in consciousness and understands who they are. Then they find that there's nothing new under a sun, and they go to worlds without suns, and they begin to try and create, just like the gods that cast the astrology in the first time. Because of that, I have what I call the 9 challenges to astrology, keeping in mind one thing. I still believe in it, but not as it's presently used. And if you're going to choose your mates based on astrological signs, you have very little wisdom. If you're going to choose a guide to where to start with the mate, it's an excellent source in seeking for one. I just explained to you all the things that I went to the signs, and I saw the faces light up when I said the sign that you came under or that you knew, and you saw the influences. It means only one thing. Astrology was there to help you change, and if astrology fits you, you have a lot to do. For as you refine yourself, no astrology will confine its terms to you. The more it can fit 5 million people, because most of those 5 million people act just alike. Follow all the weaknesses and all the strengths because they have not taken the time to discipline and break those weaknesses to strength and change weaknesses into strengths and strengths into gifts and deeds and actions. If 5 million people can be charted by one ephemeral guide, then it means just simply that's the one for them. You can begin to pass it out, Master Work. You don't have to worry about it. Just pick it, and then we can go over it later. First challenge. Most present-day Western astrologers, to substantiate the relevant, again, and antiquity and how old their science is, they say they're following the ancient and proven ways as practiced in the Far East by the Chaldeans, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the people who started astrology. They state again, according to their modern interpretation, that all of this started at one time, and yet, in starting a horoscope, most astrologers, Western astrologers especially, calibrate the sun sign as starting in Cancer. Since about June 21st, the sun ceases its northern movement and starts its journey southward. In actuality, the ancient Eastern people of Earth who perpetuated astrology used the sign of Gemini, or the 3rd house, as a house of the sun, and Gemini stands in direct line even at this present day with the earth and its sun when you're looking at what they call the constellations. Yet they still tell you that this is still based on an ancient science. It may be, but they're not using it as the ancients did use it. A horoscope is a chart of the heavens as they appear to a person on earth at a particular time in a particular place, and the so-called horoscopes which appear in our popular press are not really horoscopes at all. They are brief, etherealized readings from the current positions of the planets that affect the two zodiacal signs. The two are sidereal zodiac of India and Eastern astrology, and the study of the constellations that can be seen in the sky presently are what they call, again, the tropical zodiac of England and America, which is a study of the parent path that the sun may go to in the course of the year. One is the signs on the ecliptic that they can see, the other is guessing where it will be, and the two studies are much different. For instance, if you would, because of the phenomena called the possession of the equinoxes, the possession of the equinoxes, it means simply that the heavenly bodies are now in parallax. They are no longer going again to the sign called Aries and proceeding. They're actually going backwards now as time is beginning to almost run backwards. Or, put another way, during the past 2,000 years, the Earth has shifted 30 degrees to the west. Therefore, all fixed signs are off by 30 days, each degree for a day, as is stated in the Old Testament and in most of the old ephemerises. This means, again, as you can see on your paper, that a Scorpio is actually a Libra, a Gemini is really a Taurus, a Virgo, a Leo. You begin to get the idea. Yet, people still say it's my sign, and the stars prove it. The stars aren't proving anything. Their minds are proving everything. There is in use presently in charting an astrological guide, or pretty much again, something called the moon sign. It's used in all charts cast by an astrologer, and again, everybody on Earth deals with this moon sign too. There are at least 32 moons in our solar system, many of which move against the grain, or what they call in retrograde. They move from east to west rather than from west to east, which means that they set up anomalies in our electromagnetic field, which would influence us almost more than some stationary planetary objects, if you would. Titan, the largest of Saturn's 9 moons, is as large as the planet Mercury itself. Yet modern astrologers do not use Titan as an individual planet, but say it's already charted because it's under the aspects or field strength of that nearby planet. When a planet moves in retrograde, the field strength varies as time varies, as we vary from what we call peripheral or ecliptic to what they call, as we move in position around our own sun, those fields do hit us differently. They call them house changes. But I say again, they've even added extra moons to some of the planets, and nobody's charting those extra moons. So obviously, if somebody on Venus was alive and put up another satellite, it should also influence us differently. But of course, the charts are already cast. The ephemeris are already cut in stone. They found that Deimos and Phobos, which are proven to be artificial and made of metal, can also change their orbiting motion and fluctuate it by 10 to 15 degrees, and that's a very close by planet, and yet none of the charts reflect that, which means there are times when Venus, as well as Mars, can begin to affect us much differently. Again, the challenge or asking number 4, the Romans had high priests that were called pontiffs. That's where we get the idea of pontifical mass. It's cast by, again, many of the cardinals and popes and priests and so on again like this. And it was their duty to keep track of time, but they got out of that because Rome was fighting so many wars and so many interchanges went about that finally they got down to a time when they were behind times and they had to call a consul. The year 46 BC was when this consul was called. And that year has come to be known as the year of confusion. If you ever have to pass a test or win some quiz game, ask them again, what was the year of confusion? The year was 46 BC. At that time, all the pontiffs got together and pontificated. They got together with a new calendar to try and catch up on all the things that they had lost out on before and to try and reason them out and put Rome back on what they call the calendar with the rest of the world. Okay? That year, the Julian calendar had 445 days with 15 months again. They added all of that to try and balance out how they had lost track of time and were out of touch with the rest of the world. Any ephemeris guide or so that does not make that regulated change is worthless if you're going to follow it like people are following, especially when it comes to where you're mate and when you're mate and who you think you are. Julius Caesar, the supreme governor of Rome at one time, was so augusted, so venerated, so feared and respected that when he died, the term "beware the Ides of March," when they killed him, of course, on March 15th, came into play. And they refused to count time forward when his birthday came around and for the next day even after he died. And so, for almost 100 years, I think it's something like 85 years, the Romans counted time backwards, and they had no days past the 15th that gave linear numerical perspective. Simply means this. They killed him on the 15th, so the next year when the 16th came around, it became the 14th. The 17th became the 13th. The 18th became the 12th. The 19th, the 11th. What else? The 20th, the 10th, the 21st, the 9th. And so therefore, anybody born after that time didn't exist. And it had to be thrown into a proximity of other signs because the Romans refused to acknowledge time past the assassination of Julius Caesar. Even down to what they call the kalends, from which we get our word calendar, which means we do follow the teachings of the ancient Romans. The kalends is your day one, where we get our calendar. The original Roman calendar was a lunar calendar, which means that there was not an old calendar at all. And it copied off the originators of the old calendars, the Babylonians, Chaldeans, Greeks, Natufians, the people from Akkad, things like this, the Muslims, the Greeks. It meant that they had a 10-month calendar, not a 12-month calendar, and the days were all balanced within it. There was no leap year coming once in 4 in February, having one day more, and we have lost so much time, so much now that the Chinese and Asiatic people laugh at us and say, "You don't know what time it is." And we laugh at them by saying, "Well, you honor beasts." Not understanding the beasts were the attributes of a fallen spirit, and we still come out dumb as usual. It was not until the year 713 BC that Numa Pompilius added the months of January and February to the Roman calendar. I tell you the date. Do the research to see where I lie. 713 BC. That meant that before that date, there was no January or February. So you Cancers and Aquarians, you better look out. You didn't exist. If you were Libra or Scorpio, you were, again, deeply in trouble. Many of the signs were treated as one up until that time and only given extenuating circumstances when they extended the calendar. And so therefore they had to make up attributes, and you followed them. Still do. At different time in the Earth's recent history, 5,000 years, there have been 15-month years, 10-month years, 13-month years. There was 3.5 centuries, an 8th day. The 8th day was called a Zaret, if you would. 13th month was called Epibda. And to adequately change or transpose those changes from Eastern astrology into Western astrology, when the Western countries began to rule the world, they had to set up a new ephemeris, which differed from the ancient Eastern one, and that's why Eastern Orthodox and Asiatic time and even the stars and signs differ from Western. The present-day astrologer deals with 12 constellations and calibrating a natal, judicious, or mundane chart again, and also suns, because again, remember, a star means chart or study of the suns, astrology. There are probably millions and billions of planets in our system and in other systems and nebulae. There are really trillions maybe of comets and moons and so on and so forth. And therefore, when we say a constellation, we're talking about a tremendous amount of space debris or creative material. In our galaxy alone, there are at least 88 other constellations, and there may be more. That means they probably have decillions, nonillions, octillions of suns. Figuratively, millions and billions of planets and moons and so on and so forth, and yet we deal with only 12. That means that there's 76 unused, uncalibrated, uncharted, unput into those working ephemeruses, constellation with unlimited numbers of heavenly bodies that the astrologer says, therefore, don't influence you much, and therefore we will not chart them. To do so is only now possible over the last 30, 40 years because we came up with what we call computers. When they didn't have computers, the astrologer was too dumb to be able to do that and too ignorant to know how. Therefore, they used ephemeruses created by one genius and transposed it, and that genius could only go to 12 constellations. It has nothing to do with reality. It's only a virtual reality which we've accepted and dare say this fits us to a T. Can't make a move without it. If most of that doesn't make you at least begin to question and go study some more about your favorite astrology, I did not say astrologer, your favorite astrology, understand that between the years 1955 and 1959, even though here it says 56, our sun finished a complete reversal of its electromagnetic field and changed from a step-down transformer of energies to its baby planets to a direct relayer of concentrated energy from its nearby sun Arcturus directly, no change, no breakdown, which means that all of Earth's magnetic and electrical fields changed polarities and frequency, which meant that even if it had been worthy of belief before that time, all that changed. It may be believed in, but it's no longer worthy of belief to an advanced person. That makes it rough, and I realize that, but understand, I can now add a 10th one that I'm going to in my little pamphlet, because now they're talking about the photon experience and the photon belt, which means, again, that the magnetic frequency is being re-set up on Earth, and we won't have to worry about an electrical frequency change, which means that the spirit, the mind, and the soul will now also get a chance to express itself, and very little will be given to the physical. I say that only because if in your mating and you're searching for mates, you're using astrology as a guide, I ask you again, you better go with it. It can be a guide to let you know where your mate probably isn't, and definitely where your mate is in consciousness. Because if it fits them, and you find variances when you're honest with yourself, it means you are changing and recognize the change, and they are not. The more it fits, the more work there is to be done. It simply means you haven't advanced much in this lifetime. You may have to try it again. It goes on what the ancients said, that we are here in this classroom of Earth to progress to bigger and better mansions for bigger and better teachings. And if you get caught and flunk continuously, you can be charted. Pretty soon the truant officer may even come for you. Open for questions, statements, comments, whichever. I have some. Thank you. And I put it in your hand so you can reread it again after I'm gone and get angrier. Or even smile and say, he may have some little bit of right in him. Whichever. Yes.
I wanted to ask you a question. Before we had our break in reference to the gems, the evil spirits, how they molest females, baby females, girls, and males. How can one protect males and females from being molested by these evil gems and spirits?
Usually by studying the child at its birth, by the signs and the markings that are on the body it inhabits. and by the mother tuning in as soon as she can. In fact, the time to do it is before conception. Conception means to conceive mentally. We forgot that. What you want, you will get if you've paid the dues of discipline to be rewarded such. At the mating time, you're supposed to have certain thoughts in your mind so certain souls will not even be able to come in your mental field, and certain others you invite in by striving for your best at that time that you conceive. Many women and men conceive when they're drunk and drugged, and then wonder why they get what they get and say it's karma. It's karma that you self-created. Yes, there's a path for anybody to follow if you don't want to stay on the highway. When we are getting in young souls, if we know who we are and do what we should, and not say, I'd do better if I knew better, but say, I'm doing better because I'm knowing better, then we'd get certain souls who would not be vexatious to us in our spirit, and even if they were, we'd start to change them in the womb, man, while she carried first term. We'd be so controlled that instead of the siblings and the fetus making us go eat ravenously and do things we don't want to do because they are a stronger soul than we are, and yet we bring them in, we control that soul so strongly that everything we wanted to happen would happen to that soul, especially if the two seeds that grew it could grow it. Okay, could grow it. The best way still of controlling a child is when it goes back out of its body to its source at night or day when it sleeps. You don't confront it on the physical plane. The masters never with hand-to-hand combat. They had others to do that. They used the mind and the will and made things happen as they wanted to, and then let the lesser gods fight over what they had created. You create what you want, and you become so strong that while the child is asleep and helpless, you keep it in this comatose state and charge it with what you want, especially if you're the mother and even the father, by giving it directions to the soul and spirit that grew within you. If you made the contact when you were carrying it, you can maintain the contact while you have it, especially if you're still breastfeeding it, because it's you. If you lost that contact when you were carrying it and lost it to the animal faction when you fed it, you'll have a hard time regaining it, and you must work extra hard to do it. No further simplicity necessary. Yes.
Okay. Say for example that you have like so many that's unaware of that particular level of communication. Okay, so like when a child is resting in the daytime, afternoon, and nighttime, are there certain parts that one can massage? I would say child is receptive, like we can pick up certain things even when we're meditating, but can one like touch like maybe like say the back of the neck and do out of eyes, or maybe the gland right here, or maybe the temple, and the parent is receptive that they can telecommunicate certain thoughts to the child while they are relaxing.
I don't know. There are meridian endings in the feet, the ears, the hands, the fingers that can control every part of the body. As you know now in advanced acupuncture, put a couple of needles in the ear and the tip of the fingers, and they can remove a tooth and you don't feel it. No drugs, no anesthesia, no comatose needed. It just simply locks you into one thought and blocks off the other meridians. As I say, our brains are feeding all of these complex organs and all of these trillions of cells in our body. So if you understand where the line is tied to, just as a good electrician, it's tied to a junction box, tied to the main feed inside, it goes up to your apartment or to your rooms. Cut off the main, nothing works in the apartment. Cut off all the mains, you got no electricity flowing, period. Same thing there. That's why it's been very foolish, we feel, in allopathic science, to start opening the body when the body's already an open crystal, send energies to it and cut off the circuits, you get what you want. They're now doing that, unfortunately, but of course, in a negative way as usual, making robots of people through drugs and through, puncture points and pinpoints and stuff like this. So I simply say again, yes, I believe that touching, and of course one of the best things you can do beside the proper mating, colonics, and food eating, is getting a good rub down, where all the lines, even if you know what you're doing, just massaging all those points, and especially a female should massage a male, and a male should massage a female, because now you have yin-yang, balance, moon-sun balance. Electricals are already taken up when the hand of a male goes over a female. The male's electrical potentials are already taken care of, because the two are conduits for each other, balancing and training. Now most people don't even want to be touched. That's less rubbed, and then we let the wrong people rub us, and then males rub males and females rub females, and that's ridiculous. Never should be like that. One female rubbing a male, one male rubbing a female, even if they know nothing about massage therapy, can do more therapy than one male rubbing a male and one female rubbing another female. Unless, of course,
I want to ask about the Mayan calendar. The Mayan have calendar. Is that the Gregorian calendar year? Is that going to be like outdated and do a full back into since the planet is rising and working other vibrations? Will it go towards Mayan calendar, or will the new calendar be made up to time? Each time is so off now.
I'm going to answer you honestly as I can, and then I'm going to quickly jump off that and actually mundanely that, that would be readily accepted. The so-called Mayan calendar is really the Olmecan calendar. Since the pompous, egotistical receivers didn't want to recognize the Olmecs as being the New World creators or determiners, they used the term Mayan as a subterfuge. There really were no Mayans. Every time you see something contributed to a Mayan that's an edifice or a calendar, they're talking about the Olmecs. Olmecs are the Negroid-looking people that were on the earth at that time and needed the calendar to remember the time when they were uppermost and used it to keep in touch with the planet Venus and the constellation in Sirius. Mayan is an archaeological, technical, aristocratic, pedantic lie that the historians and people of Earth now who are running us use to keep us, as usual, deceived from the truth. That calendar was when a certain group of advanced extraterrestrials were around and needed to keep calendar with where some of them had come from and got locked in here, much like E.T., awaiting the return of their ability to use the spaceship or to create their own Merkaba, so they have time with Venus and so on like that. A very advanced people, still what they have created is astounding, but they were not originally from Earth. And they did create homes here and interface with the population for a while. That calendar is returning because, as the Christians say, wormwood is coming, as the metaphysicians say, the 12th planet, or really the 13th planet, is coming around again. Wormwood, New Jerusalem, same thing. It's the return again of the ancient ones.
The ancient ones are us.
Only as E.T. was after he died and was born again. Deal with that one. I like that. Turning myself on now. The forces are really working through me. I always get that good feeling when that happens. E.T., of course, the movie, if you remember, E.T. died. But E.T. was born again, even though the scientists of Earth pronounced him dead. Sounds like some other parable I heard about before. And then the gods came back to get E.T., but he had made a friend on Earth. And so it still shows that no matter how different the species, how different the mentality, love is the bridge that will bind all constellations, if you're in a creative way. Yes?
I have a question, Dr. Blair. Earlier you were talking about the moon and the earth. I guess my question is, does the moon have an effect on the time here? In other words, the fact, if there was no moon, would our time still be the same?
I would think not. Moon energy interrupts magnetic frequency because it is a frequency that is near the sun and the creator. Planetary frequencies are aligned to a sun. They are sons of the sun and can shine at one time. Moons are interrupted eventually. They lower the vibrations and set up to whatever field in its closest proximity to a planet that it can discharge to it. So in other words, moons usually work with the spirit and the physical body. It's what we call the emotional times of the planet. They bring out the lower frequencies and the emotional. High frequencies such as sun's frequency, which is very fast, or what we like to say vibrations, usually bring out the higher consciousness and the higher deeds of a person who has all four things working. What are the four things? Here you go. Suns work on all of that. Moons work on all of the last two, the emotions of the spirit and the body. Yes.
I'm sorry. In addition to that, if this planet is going more into a magnetic envelope, so to speak, then what's going to happen to the moon? Is the moon going to be reabsorbed into the planet? I mean, the moon is still there, so how do you compensate for the electrical?
Oh, did you hear about all those fires on the moon just about 3 weeks ago?
Fires?
Mm-hmm. Just before the lunar eclipse.
Right. Okay.
They're having all kind of things happening on the moon now. There's going to be more and more pyramids and
Well, yeah,
sphinxes, Eye and
space on Mars, I didn't hear about the fires.
yeah, they're keeping it not hidden, but it's the world press carried it to say again. A lot happening on our moon. We don't know how much longer we'll have it, but let's hope we have it for a little bit longer. Yeah, a little bit longer.
Thank you.
Yes, I think you had your hand there before.
Yeah, the same last that they use in churches. Yesterday it wasn't clear whether you answered that question. So does it stimulate your endocrine system or?
There is a field of study called chromotherapy. The use of chromatic energy or colors to heal and influence. To heal the body, the mind, and influence both. And the stained glass people were using that same thing. You can still use those colors in your window. In fact, we've used them. At one time we had a chromatic energizer until we had a mysterious fire at the center and stuff. What it does is to take colors and it helps you in hypnosis and in meditation to bring certain colors out to help balance, because each energy center has a certain color when those wheels are really spinning and when the vibrations are high. And it therefore influences the mind. So to calm down, to speed up, so on and so forth again. For instance, if a person in just chromotherapy, one example quickly, person has a fever, the eyes are red, the tongue is coated, the fever is high. So you would not use red because red is a color of hydrogen and a very high vibrating energy. The person would begin to get worse. You use blue and a cooler color, more of an electric, to take care of all that yang, that electrical fever that's there. Same thing in plants. It contain more of a certain energy. That's why they have a certain color. So color harmony in chromotherapy has always been used, and this is where the church stole it from. Notice I said the same old nasty thing. Stole it from, because they did. They don't say Michelangelo, not Michelangelo, this other guy who did that. No, they were using colors long before that first church. Yes, get it in with us.
Dr. Blair, maybe a question I could have brought up yesterday. I had wanted to know, like, the architecture of hospitals, are they set up in a certain way to heal people or for the demise of people?
Definitely for the demise of people. I could bring you some pamphlets and books that would astound you. Just reading the ones I already mentioned might help you, but let me just look at it practically, pragmatically. Hospitals are made of concrete and steel in the main. They're placed in very austere areas. Sometimes they have some photos, but not often. On the roof, they have air conditioners, housing units. In the basement, they have usually the refrigerating and furnace units, and most of them are electrical. They're sealed so you can't get natural air in there. You're breathing the same air over and over again. Each floor has a metal concrete slab with pillars across it again, and then they got the nerve to put in the computers and the coaxial cables leading to the cooling room. The things get so hot they have to have a whole room, usually 1/10 the size of the whole structure, to cool the computers alone. Give you a demonstration for relief about just getting near anything really in that kind of energy and how it disrupts thought and ages you immediately and begins to work on all cells, which have to begin to renew themselves. It is one of the worst areas, plus they're not even dealing with the concept that the persons in there are suffering. There's no alignment, no balance between the mind, body, the spirit, and the soul. There's those coming in there having. There is disease, imbalance, running tantamount through there, and the mind is suffering and crying out. The very walls and the cells in there contain that energy. The steel can be penetrated by mind energy. I know you may not believe that, and hold it there, which makes the whole place not only haunted, but a suffering mechanism, because the building has recorded all the suffering in there, because that's all the vibrations it's getting it. To make it worse, the coaxial cables and the computer inlets take such a high degree of electrical charge that the steel even becomes more permeable, and more evilness is put into the very steel of the girders of the building itself. Plus, you got people coming in there that are tired of seeing the suffering. It wears anybody. The stress factor there probably is worse. The only one worse is with the dentist, where the person is cursed and feels so much pain that they usually die and get crack up and get gray hairs overnight. It's a terrible place and a terrible way to heal a person. Occasionally, you'll find some sanatoriums that would give you a little lawn, maybe a little bubbling brook where you get some water, and a few birds that may come over there at that time. The rest of the time, they're cut off from all the things that heal. Everything in nature, when it heals, that does not go through allopathic science, goes to water, fresh and running, green grass, and all kinds of different energies that come from it. Big trees where the energy from the sky can be brought down to the earth, and energy from the earth can be brought out, and they sit under a tree, and they, as the Indians used to say, hug a tree. Everything where you can be restored, even down to the insects, which will come around you if you're depleted of energy, and those who will run from you if you're too out of balance. The animals even can help you. Sounds that you hear and color can help you. All of that is taken away. And all they give you is robots. You can guess from what I just said. It sure wouldn't be the mausoleums where they go to now.
Would it be a round structure instead of square?
Definitely, with an open dome, so the weather, no matter what it was, can be sensed if not seen, or seen if not sensed. Bright and beautiful music. For the men, beautiful women. For the women, beautiful men. Everything to make you want to live, not anything to kill you off. I mean, come on. You know, you want the person to heal and live, not to die and shrivel up. Yes.
Back to the so-called Mayan calendar. Would you say that people like Jose Abreu who use condoms for misinformation rather than the actual doctrine that the calendars were actually scientifically formulated and built from?
What little I remember about Jose Gales, and there's another person that comes, and he wrote through this pseudonym of Don Juan and so on like this. You see, you must understand, when sex is talked about in the ancient world, since the church, Carlos Castanedas, when the church was so adamant in its confrontation and killing of sex, people had to double talk. And so they went overboard to try and show that sexual energy is by means, one way that a soul locked in this body can still express itself and still receive, energies and journeys. Most definitely, I would not say anybody wrote wrongly. I would say they wrote for the reasons that they wrote. We read wrongly in believing everything that we read. How do you choose between the two? Like I said before, you're going to have to go within and learn when the vibrations are right and when they're not. And if you can't understand that, you've been so trained that you've lost your creative sixth sense. You've lost the ability to attune and judge and sense things. And that's a terrible thing to lose, because melanin automatically makes you want to do that, to sense things by touch, by feel, by sight, vibrations from things, not just if I can't see it and feel it and pick it up and study it under a microscope, when you are a microscope, as well as a microbe. I don't say I condemn the writers, I condemn the readers for not understanding how and why the writers wrote. Mm-hmm. thought I did that just a little bit yesterday, but I did it variant, so let's do it directly. Concise. A mate is anyone you can go to bed with in mind, spirit, or body. A twin mate is one who has a lot in common with you, and you can do something besides going to bed with them, and you might also experience things that bring you happiness for a time. A soulmate is finding yourself or someone so close to finding themselves that you found yourself by accident, but find you have a lot in common, and after you meet them, there's very few other people you need to deal with for anything except for variety when it's necessary. Never find a soulmate till you find yourself. Okay, questions, statements, or comments, or... Okay, then I may move on. All right. Mating and the health challenge. Viruses, candida, the fibroid fear, cancer, AIDS, good and bad hygiene, electronic diseases, the poison needle, the natural herb. Probably be the easiest one to deal with and supposedly the hardest and most complex. It's not at all. Understanding what you've been exposed to, and if you begin to find the truth within any of the things I've said, or any of the things I've suggested that you can begin to tune into and feel that is the way you would want to see it done. Once you make decisions, you set the course of what's going to happen to you. Once you're able to change decisions, if you see it's a brick wall and it might hurt, if you hit it, then you can begin to step out of the course of things that may be coming, because you can change. It's not cut in stone, because as we'll soon be finding, you can even alter time. But you can't do it when you're thinking only physically, because time is not a physical structure. Viruses only come about when they can live, and they don't come about in an environment where the vibrations are too high. People set their vibrations by either tuning to the planet and helping the planet to produce what is needed for the planet's growth, or the planet will fight you and produce what's necessary for your extinction. That is what viruses and bacteria are. They're all over the place. Any life form creative ability is there. You draw to you what you need, good or bad. The fibroid fear, and I think one of the best researchers and teachers of that is Dr. Jewel Pookrum. I don't know what you think about her. I've heard good and bad, but I think the woman is a genius in her field. And she stays in her field. She is a genius. She teaches now almost basic and middle metaphysics. That through all of her suturing, cutting, and going in, she found out that most of the women had one thing in common when they had fibroids. Deep-locked fears, deep-like traumas and stresses which started in childhood and they haven't gotten rid of and they refuse to change. Worry, fear, stress causes energy, instead of flowing outward by will, to be kept inward by desire and fear. Two of the greatest demons ever manifested in the human frame. What you hold within will start as cancers, ulcers, tumors, nodules, in whatever system you have your most stress in, it lies. The nervous system, the lymph system if you're eating bad, stress systems and rectum system if you're digesting terribly. Wherever you have stresses, that's where the embolism or that's where the growth pattern starts. So she found out that half the thing in treating fibroids was simply to let the person learn how to relax, meditate, listen to good music, look at good things, and change the things that had caused it in the first place, which was stress and out of tune. I had the privilege of being invited to speak at one of her fibroid tumor facilitators meetings. And I saw these women, these ladies, these females dancing and jumping and so on and so forth again to call down the force, just like they used to do in tribals. Taking off the shoes and picking up the heels and letting chi and prana and creative energy flow through them instead of being blocked in the womb because of fear of sex and somebody raping them and some gastronomical thing that they would hold within, now releasing it, and as they released it, the tumor shrank. We have so many locked-in inhibitions that nobody better violate, because you go off on them because you're scared for them to touch it because you won't touch it. So most of our reactions are just that, not initiatory action, but reactions that somebody might find out where our desires and fears live. And that's really brought out in fibroids. Yes, they can be agitated by drugs. Yes, they can be agitated by surgical misuse. Yes, they can be agitated by drinking. Yes, they can be agitated by everything. But they only agitate what is already imbued in that conscious mind, waiting for an excuse to manifest. Get rid of the need for manifestation, most time we fight off the other. The same thing pretty much goes for AIDS. We already talked about that one. And the same thing pretty much goes for personal hygiene. There are people who never use a bar of soap that can be cleaner than some people that do. Because if you understand that what soap is really made of, and understand what other attributes are there for cleansing, you might not ever touch soap again. In addition now to the perfume that they put in with the other animal parts, and animal bone, marrow, and fat, and everything else, and tallow, so they can put in calories. We have so much to learn. I'm not being, now please, I'm not trying to offend any ladies or gentlemen, brothers or sisters. Let me say this though. There are some women who will only take allopathic douches with chemicals to cleanse their body, which burns the tissue, hardens the tissue, and makes it again hard for natural secretions, which could kill off bacteria to even come through anymore. But they won't just use aerobic 7 or Genesis 1000, natural oxygen, which will kill a bacteria within 30 seconds, where the other ones will burn your tissue as far as trying to kill it off. It's like people using Listerine instead of aerobic 7. Because the Listerine burns it because it's going to kill germs faster. If it burns your tissue, it's not good for you. There are ways of killing through the use of oxygen any virus or bacteria alive, including Lambeogardia and E. coli and Ebola even. Oxygen. Just to diverse a little bit again, people see ozone and fear it. Ozone is a half-like thing there to clean up O1 when it changes to O2. See, they told me in school oxygen was O2. It's not. It's O1. O2 is when it's changed. O3, ozone, changes it back to O1, or gives me the ability to do it, and cleans up the atmosphere. Ozone is only present when you have fossil fuel or low vibratory things in the air. It's there to protect you and clean it up and change it back to the O1 it should be. They even lied to you about that. But then they lied and deceived in so many fashions. It shouldn't even be a problem anymore. If they say it, you should begin to doubt it as soon as it's spoken, because they don't know how to speak truth. In electronic diseases, we've already talked about that, but let me reiterate again. All these things that plug into walls that have false current coming through them in order to give off a discharge, an energy field, which is disruptive to your own electromagnetic shield, or aura, or whatever you want to call it, your EMF. A simple thing like a diode, and I've told you this a billion times, I should get an order of at least 3 diodes from each of you people. And I'm not saying that because I'm asking for your money. I'll be giving you a service. You'll be helping me to continue doing my research. You need it. But some of you will still go out and buy another computer or a TV set and never buy that diode, and then wonder why certain things are happening to your body and your loved ones. I don't know what to say to you. Electronic diseases are permeating this planet because everything is working for technology and very little with creative mind. And technology must have a plug of man-made source. If you're going to change the vibrations of the currents of the air, you better protect yourself and try to maintain somewhere the currents in creation, currents from the Creator. And you're linked to that too. Last of all, the poison needle versus the natural herb. I don't think I even have to mention that. I told you about the books that talk about it. In fact, one book called The Poison Needle. They're demanding your kids get shots in school. If you don't have kids, they're demanding some kid of some person, relative or friend you know, get those shots. And have you ever asked yourself why they're so worried now about inner city kids getting shot? And in fact, they've gotten so wonderful, they're so worried about the fetus and the child, so they'll put you in jail if you don't. Well, they're looking for any excuse to put you in jail anyway. If they're so anxious to do that, why do they then send them to wars and make guinea pigs out of them and do the kind of scientific experiments like Tuskegee permeated if they're so worried about the health of the kid? No, they're not worried about that, but they're worried about the incoming souls now that they may awaken and may even awaken you, and they do anything to hold back that high supreme charge so they can keep the station electric and keep you under control. No more, no less. Herbs from the leaves gather the sunlight from the seven spectrum light, ultraviolet light from the creative sun that governs us. Roots drawn from the inner earth, and that's as much as I'll say there, and the mineral and elemental kingdom, the things, and store it there in a usable form for man. The stem is only the conductor. The leaves and the flowers that bloom, they now have flower essences. They have gem elixirs from the elements that have also become gems and hold that kind of energy that you need. They're grinding them up like they used to again now. They're letting the essences from flowers come out. You can now buy these things as the good forces are still trying to save you at a time when you're trying to kill yourself or allow them to. Doesn't take guns and bullets all times. Nowadays they give you a command, you'll kill yourself. Am I hard on you? No. This is all male and female mating, believe it or not, because if you digest half of what you've been exposed to today, your choice in your life will soon change, and you'll find it'll change as soon as you change the person that's no good for you, or if you're no good for yourself, you'll do better and you'll draw a person to you that you want, and that you are now vibrating enough to get. It's not way out, it's not esoteric, it's truth. But I'm trying to do it in 2 days. Therefore, some of you will resent me, some of you will like me, some of you will love me, but what you got to do is not resent yourself, like yourself, and love yourself, and we'll all be happy because that's what I want to be able to do too. And if I told you anything less, I couldn't look at myself. I wouldn't feel good this way. No matter what you think of me, I'll walk out of here proud and hope you will too. Last phrase. Cycle of mating, adolescent, teenage, adult, and senior, and then we'll move into the new age, new realities, new beginnings. It's very simple. What goes around comes around. There used to be what they call a statue of time. There were two, one in Washington, D.C., one in Chicago, Illinois, along the Midway Plaisance University, Chicago. It showed a fetus